This is existential. Whether the world as we know it today is going to make it. Those storms, those floods will only become more pronounced, more frequent, and more severe going forward. Scientists agree.
This is a tough hurricane, one of the wettest we've ever seen from the standpoint of water.
Droughts are only going to become more severe going forward. The more that this climate changes, the longer we wait to make the important decisions that will begin to arrest the rapid change that we're seeing.
It was a fairly stunning midterm, probably the biggest sea change midterm since Watergate.
There's never been as big a win as the Democrats have had in the House this off-term election.
There were some candidates who ran on climate change for the first time. I mean, it was one of their top 3 issues. A number of them won their races, flipped the House districts.
When we pulled ourselves out of the Paris Accord, we did so to the detriment of our own country. We did so to the detriment of our relationships with countries around the world.
Climate change has actually become a wedge issue in a lot of parts of the country.
For 16 years, you've doubted the fundamental scientific
consensus young man.
around climate. I'll be happy to, sir. I'll be happy to do that and much more. My question is, why do you blindly support Donald Trump's agenda to gut the EPA, to gut basic science?
Down in South Florida, the business community, Democrats and Republicans alike, local elected officials, Democrats and Republicans alike, understand that climate change is something that we have to respond to.
First, let's talk about your caucus, the Climate Caucus. Congressman Curbelo, what are you trying to achieve?
Republican Carlos Curbelo has been co-chair of the Climate Solutions Caucus in the U.S. House. Mr. Curbelo represents a South Florida district where impacts of climate change are impossible to ignore. In 2018, his Democratic opponent was Deborah McCarcel-Powell. Mr. Curbelo attacked Ms. McCarcel-Powell with ads suggesting she was a tool of carbon-polluting industries.
And her campaign is flooded with dirty coal money, the very polluters that threaten our way of life in the Keys.
These claims were shown to be false.
I think our first phase, which we've successfully completed in my view, is to get Republicans and Democrats together at the table, have a discussion about the facts regarding climate change, and just to share our ideas, take some testimony from experts. We've done that.
Well, so it didn't work for him in the sense that he lost his election. He had amassed probably one of the best climate records of a sitting Republican member of Congress that we've seen in a decade. I think we're still trying to understand and still breaking down how much it may have helped him or hurt him compared to other factors. What we may find is that support for climate policy incrementally helped quite a bit, but it wasn't enough to get him over the hump in a blue wave year.
There's been a lot of criticism of that House caucus, that it was a do-nothing caucus, but that may not have been the point. The purpose of the caucus was always to simply see, is there will to work on this issue among the Republican Party?
Even if they weren't fully where Mr. Curbelo was in terms of willingness to embrace policy solutions, they at least were willing to enter into a conversation with him.
Was it potentially greenwashing in some of these purple districts? Perhaps. That's what politicians do.
So for a little while, I don't want to say really hopeful, but maybe something good can come of this. But I noticed after a while that they were much better at putting out press releases touting the new members than they were at actually doing anything.
Fred Upton has worked across the aisle in Washington, taking bipartisan action to boost clean energy technologies that have created 92,000 jobs in Michigan. And Fred has joined the Bipartisan Climate Caucus to help common sense climate solutions.
Fred Upton made it very clear when he joined the Climate Solutions Caucus that he was doing so to promote natural gas. Another example, Peter Roskam in Illinois 6th District. He was facing Sean Casten, who's a legitimate climate hawk.
This facility is on the leading edge of clean energy, but Donald Trump doesn't think we need it because he thinks climate change is a hoax. I'm Sean Casten. I'm a scientist and a clean energy entrepreneur who helped companies reduce CO2 emissions.
Sean Casten is going to be awesome in Congress. He was the one who was running explicitly on climate change. Most importantly, he's a total energy geek. He's one of those people whose eyes light up when he starts talking about carbon footprints. Debbie Mucarsel-Powell is very much an A-grade candidate on climate change. She also ran on healthcare and guns as her other two issues, but she very much incorporated climate change into her work.
There are lots of other Republicans who know they have to deal with this issue. They don't have a choice. They know that if they don't get this issue right, this and several other issues like gun violence and immigration reform and a couple of others.
It's more than just climate change. Donald Trump is gutting healthcare, dismantling Social Security and Medicare, attacking women.
The National Republican Party may be done. It could be done as a national party because of the demographic shifts that are underway so rapidly now in the United States. From a purely political standpoint, they'll keep talking about this issue because younger voters under the age of 35 look like Democrats on this issue right now. And they know it.